Thank you for joining me at Evolutionary Energy Arts once again. Today we are talking about a ketogenic diet and the benefits of a ketogenic diet. So what is a ketogenic diet? It's basically one in which fats are going to make up the dominant portion of your diet. So your diet is going to be traditionally somewhere around 65 to 70%, even as high as 75% fat. And that's dependent on what you are doing as far as working out and muscle-wise, and what your goals are. And then protein is typically going to be about 25-30%, maybe as high as 35% sometimes, but typically 25% is the average. And then carbohydrates are going to be kept to 5%, or typically you'll have a fixed number. Like no more than 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrates, depending on how large you are, what your body weight is. So if you are a woman that weighs 150 pounds, you might stay at 20 grams or less. If you're a 250 pound man, you might be able to go up to 35 or even 40 grams and stay there or less. But the idea is to keep the carbohydrates as low as possible. And carbohydrates are, something that basically slips into food very easily, especially if you're somebody that eats processed food. So the first thing to do is focus on thinking paleo in your mind, which means, whole foods. We have meats, we have vegetables, and the difference between paleo and a ketogenic is that you're not really taking in the fruits. So fruit becomes something that we don't really utilize in a traditional ketogenic diet or standard ketogenic diet. It could be utilized in some that go into cycles, like a cyclic or a targeted ketogenic diet, which are a little bit different. And again, it depends on what our goals are. So we'll cover some of the basics on all that and introduce you to the benefits of a ketogenic diet and how do you do it. Well, basically, you can see over here, fewer carbs, more carbs. You're going to be focusing more on lean protein, taking in lean proteins and healthy fats. So, of course, we have fish, we have some meats, we have eggs. Avocados are everybody's friend on a ketogenic diet. Leafy green vegetables, and then basically your vegetables that are lower in carbs, especially. You'll be using onions and peppers, and broccoli actually has a little bit more carbs than you would expect. Cauliflower is great instead of mashed potatoes. So things like starchy things are gone. You're not going to be using starches. You're not going to really be taking in beans. You're going to be utilizing cabbage and things along this lines. And cheeses and dairy are okay on a keto diet. If you are lactose intolerant, then you might want to avoid that category. And then, the problems that you run into is then if you're looking for some alternatives, a lot of times they'll have a lot of garbage in them, to natural products. So you end up getting into processed foods that have a lot of crap in them, for lack of a better word. You want to avoid the processed foods, for sure. Whole foods, natural foods, and do yourself a favor and stick with organic. I see people doing ketogenic diets and they're whipping out stuff that's genetically modified. And they're eating things that might be high in fat, but they're just going to be horrible for you. They don't really have any sort of benefit to you. So, if you're going to be eating, say, a hot dog, make sure that it's uncured, because nitrates are harmful to the system and could cause cancer. So with bacon and hot dogs, yeah, you're allowed them on a ketogenic diet, but make sure you're nitrate-free, uncured, organic. There is so much crap thrown in our foods, pesticides, growth hormone, and while we want to increase human growth hormone output, we don't want to take in different growth hormones that are put in the meats and all. So again, with your meats, look for grass-fed meats. If you are eating an animal that was fed genetically modified corn, you are going to be taking in that genetically modified corn, which could damage your DNA. So don't do it. Cut back, and this would be something that might cause you to lose a little bit more weight. So instead of buying that 4-pound rump roast that is loaded with antibiotics and ate genetically modified feed and has been pumped full of steroids, go ahead and get organic grass-fed beef. It's going to be so much better for your body in the first place. And GMOs have been shown to cause all sorts of issue with our DNA, and they could cause a lot of health problems as well as inflammation response, and you want to stay away from them. And if something's not organic, then it's been probably treated with a lot of pesticides, which in high concentrations again can cause cancers and all sorts of disease. So avoid that. Stick organic, stick non-GMO, and stick clean. Stay with clean, wholesome foods. How does ketosis work? Well, typical diet, when you take in carbohydrates, your glucose levels rise, the pancreas secretes insulin, and that right there causes inflammatory response. So insulin shuttles glucose into the cells, and it gives you energy. Now with a keto diet, glucose levels fall. They fall when there's no carbs there, and you burn up and use all the glycogen that's stored in the muscle tissue and also in the liver. So what happens is your body goes and starts breaking down the body fat that's stored, and that's a good thing because toxins are stored in body fat. Body fat contains toxins. So the less body fat you have, the less toxins are in your body. So you're basically going to shift from creating an inflammatory response by having the pancreas secrete insulin, which can also over time help predispose you to diabetes in the long term. Instead, with a keto diet, you're going to be running off of stored body fat and also the fat that you take in, which the lipase releases stored triglycerides, and then fatty acids travel to the liver, and the liver converts that into ketones. And ketones are going to be what your body is going to run off of. And when your body runs off of ketones, you're actually way more stable. It's a much more stable form of energy than glucose. Glucose is a roller coaster ride, up and down, up and down, up and down. Ketones give you real stable energy, and you will notice that difference. Many people say they feel just more steady, and they don't get those wild binging and hunger sensations anymore. So some benefits of a ketogenic diet plan: it could definitely help you manage diabetes. It improves mental health. Your mind will become sharper. It has been shown to improve learning skills in autistic children. It definitely fights obesity. And it can also help with migraine headaches. And more than that, research continues to show that sugar is the main source of fuel which feeds cancer and contributes to an inflammatory environment. Sugar essentially increases the risk for cancer and disease. So switch to a ketogenic diet for optimal health. And it's true. Cancer loves sugars. And think about how we were brought up with the old traditional food pyramid, and we were told 7 to 11 servings of grains and breads and things. And then over time, these grains and breads ended up being Captain Crunch and Wonder Bread, and they switched to putting in high fructose corn syrup in those things. And think about people getting, give me a number one at McDonald's, and you're drinking a large liquid high fructose corn syrup death meal. It's just horrible, like the sodas. All these things are horrible for you. They create a horrible inflammatory environment in your body, and no wonder why we have such a prevalence of all these inflammatory diseases. And, it's not really our fault when you get down to it, because this is what we were told was a good way to eat, going back to the 50s, that far back. Ketogenic diets could be good for fibromyalgia too, and actually they'll be good for anything that is inflammatory, anything. So pulmonary diseases, Alzheimer's, arthritis, autoimmune, cancer, cardiovascular, type 2 diabetes, neurological diseases, all these things are inflammatory diseases. So when you don't have that glucose insulin spike, it reduces inflammation in the entire body. So it allows your body to relax, to get stable, solid energy instead of a constant roller coaster, up and down, up and down. And, that is extremely beneficial. So let's cover the 4 challenges first on ketosis. And ketosis is a state of being whereas your body is burning, creating ketones from the body fat and from the fat that you're taking in. So when you're in ketosis, then you have turned on that energetic process and turned off the glucose process. And that's something that could come and go. So if you, say, the next morning after, eating completely a ketogenic diet, decide to have pancakes, you're going to jump out of ketosis. Not to say you couldn't get back into ketosis in about 8 to 10 hours later. But for the challenges, is the warm-up time for workouts is a little bit longer. And at first, if you are working out on a regular basis, you might feel a little bit weaker. You might not have quite as much initial energy, but your energy will be much more stable and will last longer, and especially once your body adapts. And as you're spending more and more time in ketosis, your body will get better and better at being in that state. And then your strength will keep going up, your energy will keep going up and stay stable. So prior sensitivity to cold temperature could be increased. I have not found that to be the case at all. I find it quite the opposite. And that could be because I do a modified ketosis, a modified ketogenic diet, because I do lift usually 5 or 6 days a week. So I take in a higher amount of protein, when the protein is what's jacking my thermogenesis up. It's making me run hotter. Cholesterol is higher, but that's likely benign because of the ratio and the good cholesterol. And then fasting glucose is higher. Possible cramping. That I have never had that problem. Actually, I had more problems before going into a ketogenic diet with cramping. So 10 benefits. Much easier to achieve weight and body composition. I mean, there's no comparison. It's just going to happen if you stay in ketosis. No longer hungry or tired after meals. Again, that's that stability thing. No more roller coaster. Athletic stamina supports sustained high intensity. No longer have any symptoms of inflammation, and that is so huge for your overall health. If you didn't even care about weight loss, if you didn't even care about getting lean, this is worth it in and of itself, because this is going to decrease the chances of you having so many different diseases down the line. Or if you are suffering from things like fibromyalgia and other inflammatory diseases, this will definitely decrease that. No longer get cold and flu symptoms. Blood pressure is down for sure, because you're not storing all that water anymore. And carbohydrates, they're water storage vehicles. Resting heart rate gets lower. Triglycerides are down. HDL cholesterol is up. LDL cholesterol subclass is favorable pattern A. So, your low density cholesterol is going to be in a favorable pattern, and the beneficial high density is up. So it's a win-win situation. Now there's different types of ketonic diets or ketogenic diets depending on the person. So if, say, you are overweight and you're not an athlete and you simply want to lose fat, then go with the standard ketogenic diet. So there you'll have about 20 to 50 grams of net carbs, and I would say 20 to 30, depending on the size of the person, unless you're very large. And really, you want to keep it as low as possible. And there you will have about 70 or 75% fats and about 20 to 25% proteins. So if you're not working out and you're going to let the diet do all the work, I mean, if you're going to go, say, and walk and do cardio, but you're not going to lift weights and try to build muscle, go with the standard ketogenic diet, and you'll probably lose weight the quickest. Now, if you are an athlete, you might find it challenging. You might find some muscle getting wasted. And then you could go into either a targeted or a cyclical. Now, a targeted diet is more advanced, and there you would take in 25 to 50 grams or less of net carbs, and it's 30 minutes to an hour before exercise, and that's best for athletes in high activity. So that's a case where, you know, you're utilizing the glucose and the response to improve your performance, but then you're right back into eating ketogenically. So you just take it in before a workout, and I have done that for years and found that to be so beneficial. And really, that's kind of what I would follow most of the time. I've been exploring a cyclical ketogenic diet now too, where you eat low carb keto. Now there's different ways of doing this, for several days, and then a couple days eating higher carb. And honestly, I can't even bring myself to eat higher carb at all anymore. And for me, higher carb might be a slice of watermelon and a mango, or half a mango, and you know, that's pretty much it. I don't want anything really but real food. And again, that's sticking with the paleo idea. So, you know, all your stuff, like your baked goods, all your crap that's in the middle aisles of the grocery, we don't even go to that. I mean, when I go shopping, I go to the produce, go around to the meats, and you know, that's kind of it for the most part. So different ways of doing this, like with the cyclical. There's people that will eat low carb, totally keto, for 3 days, take 1 day off. There are some that will eat that way for 5 and do a weekend off. There are some that will do it 6 days and take a day off. There are some that will do it 7 or 8 days and take a day off. And then there are some that will do it 2 weeks and then go to something different, maybe more of a targeted for 2 weeks, then back to a cyclical for 2 weeks. And that could be really effective. Very, very effective for taking fat off too. And I've experimented with that too, and literally dropped on the cyclical in a 2-week period. Gosh, I think I dropped about 12, 13 pounds. It was a little quick, but I was just shocked at how quickly it came off. Now, so again, keto diet variations. If you're looking for lose weight, go with the standard ketogenic. It's not as good for muscle gain, because you're probably not going to get enough protein on that to really keep the muscle. So a targeted is kind of more equally balanced. You can lose weight on it, you can gain muscle on it, so it's good there. And then the cyclical is basically not quite as good for losing weight, but much better for gaining muscle. And honestly, I find that these two are pretty close. You know, it's going to be what is right for you. It's something you're going to have to experiment with and find out what's right for you. And ultimately, you are your greatest truth and your greatest judge. You know, let's be honest with ourselves. Let's log things daily, and maybe say take a body fat composition every week or two. Make sure you're heading in the right direction. You know, I know people that won't step on a scale every day, and then there's others that will. You know, I monitor it every single day, but I'm neurotic, so that's me. But I also feel like that way, if I started to go off track, and then I'll be able to pull it back in quicker. So if you like this video, please do a thumbs up. Please share and subscribe for more videos. We cover many different topics here on evolutionary energy arts. And we're going to be doing much, much more on health and nutrition and actual training as well. So I want to thank you so much for your kind support. Thank you for coming and visiting with us. Please subscribe and become part of the Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Thank you and have a great day.